So it's just not on the first slide. There's the first slide. This is a combined class of general physics, which is, I probably should change the name of the class, but it turns out I have to change the number of the class if I change the name. Different schools have different names, and I've changed to using the textbooks from OpenStax, which we'll see on the next slide. And your textbooks are absolutely free. But it's funny because one textbook is named College Physics. That's the textbook for general physics. And one textbook is named University Physics. That's the textbook for college physics. You see why I probably should shift the names around. So Physics 151. Oh, hey, look, it didn't, well, do that button, then it'll work. 151, it still didn't work. I'm not going to do it. I practiced without having the two screens. And so it's not working the same. 151 is algebra based. 251 is calculus based. Now, what's the difference in the two? Well, obviously you could hear those words. We will meet 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at this time, with the Physics 151 and 251 classes combined. So I generally won't be using calculus topics there. And then we're going to meet one additional time, Tuesdays at 11:30, for the calculus specific material. And so that's fundamentally the difference. When it comes to the exams, there'll be probably one question that's a calculus-based question for the 251 students, and the rest will be algebra-based for the 151 students. So there's a slight difference on the test. There's the different one additional meeting, which is why it's 4.5 units for the 251 versus 4 units for the 151. And there will also be some variations in the homework. So you have some calculus and the calculus-based homework assignments, and just algebra-based problems for the others. Okay, textbook. The general physics class has the college physics textbook. The college physics class has volumes 1 and 2 of the university physics textbooks. So let's take a look at these textbooks, and truly, God only knows what's going to happen when I actually click these links. So here is, assuming, all right, we can see already the flaw in this. I'm going to have to stop the presentation and do it in the single mode because you can't see that I changed the screen. Yeah, that blanks it out. That didn't do me any good. Display settings, duplicate. Okay, if I do duplicate, then hopefully when I change, it'll work. I am sorry I did not go through this aspect before. But yes, now it works because this is the way I practice. So this is the OpenStax website for all of their science textbooks. And in Moodle, there is a direct link. And of course, we are using the physics ones. So if you're in general physics, which all but 4 of you are, hence I'm going to do that, I'll just click on the link for that, and it'll bring up the web page for the textbook, which has all of the different options that you can receive it as. You have the online version, which is the one I most recommend. You can download a PDF, so like you can put it on your phone or whatever and have it available when you don't have internet access. You can get also an iBooks version, which of course is enhanced for your iPad or iPhone. You can get a Kindle version. You can also order a print copy. The print copy, I think they have a price that's just a shade under $50. You might be able to get it for about $10 less if you go to the bookstore and order a print copy through the bookstore. And the print copies are actually high quality print copies. I had another online text I used in the past that wasn't free, and they sold a print copy that was like on rice paper. It was horrible. And it was black and white. I was like, how could somebody pay good money for this? So you have lots of options. Everything except for the print copy is free. So I'm going to go to view the online. Maybe I'm going to. Is it now? View online. And you can see what the textbook looks like here. So, yeah, it'll come up. Really, the internet's not as slow as it appears to be. It must be the Microsoft Surface Pro. So you have the textbook, and it has all kinds of, section by section. You can go from one section to the next using the next button. That button there will show you the table of contents, so you can quickly jump through the different chapters in the book. And so if I want to go to, let's see what it says on accuracy, precision, significant figures, I just click there, brings it up over the right. I'm going to close the table of contents, maybe. It has to respond first. And so you can see, everything here from the textbook. So I'm trying to save money for you. Now, that is not the only option with the textbook. It's the free one, of course. Come on, baby. So there is also a lab guide. We have our first lab tomorrow at 2 p.m. So I really need to have it done by then. I'm sure it won't be in the bookstore by then, so I will give you a digital copy of the beginning part and the first lab. So I'll make that available on Moodle sometime this afternoon. Not immediately after class maybe, but sometime this afternoon I'll make that available so you can have that, so you can look through what we're going to do beforehand and how to do a lab write-up and all that stuff. I'll talk about the other two volumes here tomorrow for the students in the Physics 251. So you will have a lab book to buy at the bookstore that's somewhere between $15 and $20, I think. There's also the homework site, so there's more money to be spent. It's just not the big chunk on a textbook. Okay, class times, as you're well aware, because you're all here on time. Class meets at 11 a.m. I will be taking record every day. If you're here on time, that's good. If you're here within the first 5 minutes, you get a little deduction on your attendance grade. If you're here more than 5 minutes late, that's, if you come 7 minutes after class starts, then that's worse on the attendance grade. Also, if you're like texting people during class and I notice it, that will also affect your attendance grade. And then we have laboratories on Tuesday from 2 to 5. Every now and then it'll run longer than 5. Most of the time you should be able to finish before 5 p.m. But I've had students, I signed up for a class that starts at 4. I told them I could be to work at 4. That won't work. We do tend to use at least close to the full time. The objectives. Obviously I have goals that I want for this class. I will start with one that I didn't list in there. It's really important to me that my students start thinking about the world differently. That when they look at things, they see something happens like, one of the things that thrilled my heart was when Steve Nazario's daughter said, "You ruined me." I was driving down the road and I saw this car had slid off on the ice, and I was thinking, oh yeah, because the coefficient of friction wasn't high enough. And she started thinking about the physics things of why the car went off the road. Besides just, I must have been a bad driver. And that's what I want students to develop, that interest in, why did this occur? Because that's what really physics is about. Physics is about understanding why things happen around us. And science in general is understanding why things occur, but physics is talking about the physical world. So the things we see are physics. In fact, all the other sciences, it just branches off in our physicist point of view. And so if you're not curious about why things occur, then physics is much harder, because it's dealing with that curiosity, why did it happen, and trying to figure out. So that's not on here. The things that are on here, the scientific method. The scientific method is what defines a science. And so I'll have a few slides, I think, on the scientific method. But understanding what the method is of developing understanding in physics is one of the things that's really important to me. And to that end, I have a portion of every lab experience that students tend to not really appreciate that deals with the scientific method, to make sure you're thinking every lab period about, okay, our labs and lab, you have to be serious. It's not really a science lab. It's just regurgitating an experiment that's been done lots of times, no new discovery. And so I have this thing, so there is a little science aspect. So you're thinking about, I observed something. Why did it happen? and do a test to see if your idea of why it happened really is what happened. So that scientific method idea is emphasized in lab every week. And yeah, it adds some time to the lab and some frustration because you know what you have to do? You have to think instead of just follow directions. It's a lot easier to follow directions than to think. We will be working, first of all, with mechanics. Mechanics is, well, broken up into two things, statics and dynamics. And I could add in kinematics, which is part of dynamics. Statics is things that are stationary and what's going on there. Dynamics is things that are moving and what's going on there. Kinematics is how things move. So we're going to start with that mechanics stuff, just stuff that is everyday, things we deal with. Then we'll move on to thermodynamics, which is actually, we won't be doing any statistical calculation here, but thermodynamics is statistics applied to microscopic particles. So you have things like air pressure. Nobody thinks about, at least most normal people don't think about what's causing this air pressure. And if you think about it, you might come to the conclusion it's caused because there's molecules in the air that keep pounding into my skin. And it's those collisions with my skin and them bouncing off that is changing momentum of the particles, which means that there is a force. That's what's causing the pressure. And so that's what thermodynamics is dealing with, is talking about microscopic behavior with statistical averages for macroscopic measurements. So we have temperature, pressure, volume, and how those interrelate. A lot of people get excited when we get to thermodynamics because you also cover thermodynamics in general chemistry. And most people taking general chemistry before this class, so they're like, oh, this is just chemistry. Well, it is an area of overlap, but it's most definitely physics. Then we will get to waves. Waves, we have sound waves, acoustic waves. And that's all we're going to be studying this semester in waves is acoustic waves, sound waves. Second semester, we'll start off with electricity and magnetism and then combine those to make electromagnetic waves, another type of wave, which is what light is. So we'll get more of waves next semester. The last thing of an objective here is to recognize that science is important to life. You know, we have things like the projector, the lens, my phone, the way it communicates. All of that stuff is stuff that's been developed by physicists over the years. And we can see a lot of benefits from it. I just want students to, to think about this and realize, these science classes aren't there to be impediments. They're there to help you understand the world better. And a lot of people take this class because they're like, let's say you're pre-dent. How many people here are pre-dent? Okay, so you have 3. To get into dental school, you have to take general physics. But you're never going to talk about physics in dental school. And so we as pre-professional advisors, many times will ask like, well, Melinda, why do you require physics if you don't even use it? And their answer is, because in physics, we think about things differently. It's very much analytical. You look at something and you try to take all the information and come to a conclusion, and that's very much what you're doing in a dental setting or a medical setting, even more probably. And so it's the way that we think in physics that's the reason they require it. Now, it's also a thing students tend to not like about physics, again, is that, we don't just give you, I've seen this problem before, I'll do it again on the test. It should be things you haven't seen before, but using ideas that you've seen before. And then you have to figure out how those things fit together. Academic integrity. Hopefully none of you know, I am the chair of the Academic Integrity Committee. So if there's ever a cheating incident, then, I recuse myself because I wouldn't, make anything on a student or a situation I'm in. But the basic thing is, don't cheat. It's bad form, right? When you cheat, some people have different definitions of cheating, but in the end, the one that's getting cheated is the student. Let's say you come out of here and you manage to cheat on every assignment, every test, and you learn no physics and you got an A. And then you go on to, the next step in your life, and they're asking you questions and you didn't learn anything. You're like, I don't know. Right? It's you that got the damage from the cheating in the end, even if it was never caught. So, don't cheat. Now, after saying don't cheat, there are a few definitions that really need to be clear. So what is cheating? Let's say, okay, Sarah has finished her homework assignment. And Sarah asked Sarah, hey, were you able to do that problem? Yeah, I got it. Well, can you show me how to do it? And Sarah says, I don't have the time to show you, but here's my paper, and gives it to Sarah. That would be considered cheating. I just used Sarah and Sarah, so I thought it was fun. Not because they would cheat or anything like that. Right? If you're giving somebody your work for them to copy, that's cheating. That's an integrity issue on your part because you're facilitating something. And if the person receives it, that would also be cheating. They're using somebody else's work. Also, there's things like using the website Chegg. A lot of people use Chegg. Well, it's just a massive cheating site. It has all the solutions for all the problems. People go there, they write down the solutions, they don't worry about learning anything. They've harmed themselves, they haven't learned anything, and they're going to have a test. And so, pretty much don't ever use Chegg, okay? Just don't use it. I meant to move this down here. I didn't mean to duplicate it, but yeah, he got it there twice. Things to do as far as in the classroom. Come on time. Remember, I do keep the record, and it affects a bonus to your grade. I'll talk about in a minute. Pay attention. I hate to admit these kinds of things, but last year, second semester went brutally bad. And at least half the class came to class, sat down, and paid zero attention to anything I said. And of course, that caused me great distress. It, caused grades to plummet. And, it's not helping us, not helping me, not helping you if you come but don't learn anything. So pay attention. Don't be texting or working on other classes. I know it's tempting. Sometimes you really have, time pressures. And I can tell you my habit when I was in college was to come to class and work on that class when the teacher was boring me. I was not a perfect student. But, don't be sitting there texting and talking and so on. Okay, now the things that your grade is made of. Each class period, we will start the class period. Okay, each class period, not counting today or Wednesday. And yes, I say Wednesday. I just like to say it because it's spelled that way. At the beginning of class, I will call on a group. Now, for this, I need some cooperation. We have a number that's divisible by 3 here. But we have 3 tables that have only 2 people at them. I don't know if you guys want to split up and join with another table or have 3 groups of 2 or 2 groups of 3. So I guess I'll let you guys do that. But what I would like you to do is to take a piece of paper and write the names of the 3 people sitting at the table with you today. And for the beginning of the semester, that's your homework group. And your homework group each one of you will be responsible for turning your own homework, but I hope that you guys will work together because at the beginning of class, starting Friday, I will randomly, and I do mean randomly, I just have cards with the different groups on them. I'll randomly pull out a card and have that group of people come up and solve one of the homework problems that will be due that night for the class. So if your homework group didn't do that problem, that would be detrimental to your grade. Right? The goal is that you've done the homework problems before coming to class. They're not due until later in the evening, so that if you didn't have it done right and the problem they happen to work out was one you need, or if you ask me a question, get some help on the problem, that you can then work on that for turning the homework. So you will be doing that problem at the beginning of class in front of the classroom. And if you look at the syllabus, it has the breakdown. If you do it perfectly with no help needed, then you'll get 10 points for that assignment. If you need a little bit of help, but you work it out nicely, that'd be 9 points. If you need a lot of help, that's 7 points. If you can't get it done, even with a lot of help, that's 5 points. And if you simply refuse to try, that's 0 points. So, right, even if you don't know anything, you're at least going to get 50%, unless you refuse to go up there. Because, some people are like embarrassed. I don't know. I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm just going to, I don't want people to do that, because there's a certain learning. You come up here and you're like, I don't know how to start. I'll ask students, and, a student might say, well, maybe you should do this. Oh, yeah, good idea. Get going. You can solve problems. Yes?
Does every group go every day?
No. That's a good question. So what I will be doing is I'll have the cards, I'll randomly choose a group, and then toss it. And so when it gets down, the last group will know when their day is. And then when I've got to the last group, then we will reshuffle the groups. And so then you'll start it in. So that's part of the in-class problems, but not all of it. At the end of every class period, starting on Wednesday for this one, I will give you a problem to solve with your homework group. So that's why I'm having you sitting at the same table, because at the end of each class period starting Wednesday, I know, Wednesday, I slip between them. Then you'll be working on a problem with your table, and when you're done, raise your hand. And the first one to raise their hand, I'll come by and check to make sure they have the right answer. And I'll have them then demonstrate to the rest of the class how they did it. And you'll get, now it's only 1 point for this, so it's not nearly as big as the other. But your group can do this once per week. So there'll be 3 points per week on that, and your group can pick up 1 point each week. And of course, when you shuffle the group, the points you earn stay with you. It's not like, oh, now I'm in a different group and I lost those points. Just make sure that's clear and there's no confusion. So that's 5% of your grade. It's not a huge percentage of your grade. The reason it's not a huge percentage of your grade is, what if a group doesn't know how to do a problem and they get 50% on it? I don't want it to be 50% out of a huge section, of credit. So that's why it's relatively small. It helps take some pressure off. Then we have the reading quizzes. Now, the reading quizzes is a lot of actually your learning the way I'm trying to do the class this year. You might notice problem at the beginning, problem at the end. There will be more time working on problems than me talking during the period. And so it's important that you've read the material before coming to class. And the reading quizzes are questions from the textbook authors that they think you should be able to answer from reading the material. And so there already is an assignment created. In fact, reading quizzes for the whole semester are all created already. But there's one thing. I found out yesterday, last minute, that there is an integration that I can get between Moodle and the site that does these reading quizzes. And that integration should make it easier for you to log in, easier for me to import the grades, etc. But you have to request it. They have to approve it. I don't know why you have to request and have it approved. So I filled out the form last night, actually. Yeah, it was either Friday or yes, it was Friday actually, I think that I did it. And I haven't gotten a response yet, but I should this morning. And so I haven't put anything for you to connect to the reading quizzes yet, because I want to be able to do it through the integration with Moodle. So if I haven't heard back from them by lab time tomorrow, then I'll just revert to the normal way. Now, there is a fee for that website, and it's $10. So it's not expensive, but it is money. And I have a student who's a freshman in this class, and so I feel very keenly about the money. I'm very glad that I'm able to not make him pay $200 for a textbook. So, next thing, a new thing that I've never done before, scrapbooking. You know what I'm not? I am not crafty. My sisters love to scrapbook. My wife loves to scrapbook. Me, not so much. The idea of the scrapbook here is that you're going to find something that you see in like the newspaper or a website or something that is relevant to what we're talking about. And you're just like, oh, I'm going to add that to my scrapbook. And then you have to add a few special things. Now, I made a sample scrapbook, which I hope I still have open here. There it is. So I made a sample scrapbook so I could show you what it should look like. So your scrapbook could be either made with PowerPoint. You all have free access to Microsoft Office. Does everybody know that? Okay. If you didn't know or you don't know how to get access, when you log into Moodle at the top of the page, it tells you, hey, here's a link, what to do. So I made this in Google Slides, but you could use PowerPoint as well. And so I have my first one that's a tile slide, my next one an index of what things I have, and you certainly can make it different. I made this really quickly as an example. And then I have two entries here, one on the Mars Climate Orbiter. You may or may not know about this, but I found it really interesting, and it's something that's applicable to the physics of today if I ever get to it. I put chapter 4 here, but it also, we're going to talk about units here at the end of the lecture. In 1999, millions of dollars were lost because this satellite that NASA was sending to measure the climate things on Mars had a program that output the thrust in units of pounds times seconds. But the standard unit we use in science is newtons times seconds. And so this program was outputting the thrust in pounds times seconds, and it was outputting it to another program that assumed it was getting the thrust in newtons times seconds. And so it crashed into Mars because you can't do the trajectory right if you're not putting, it was only putting, as I said here, 22.5% of the thrust that they thought they were getting. And so it crashed. So it's a great example of you need to pay attention to units. They're really vital. Hopefully your problems with units won't be this big. My brother is a nurse. He worked with another nurse who killed a patient because she couldn't calculate units. She mixed medication like 1,000 times too strong and killed the patient. That's really severe consequences for not paying attention to units. And then I put a second one here because this happened just a week ago. A new land speed record for internal combustion engine. This baby right here got up to 450 odd miles an hour. Depends on if you're going one way or the other. And, it's cool application of physics, talking about aerodynamics and drag there. So that's what you have as entries of something you found somewhere. You have a reference for where you found it. So you see my link there. When you found it, why it was interesting to you, what the textbook has to say about this topic, and then, the relevance is your description. Now, these are graded just on yes, no. So basically, when I go to grade this, I'll just say, do they have an entry? Does it have the source and the date? Does it have blah, blah, blah? But there are bonus points for ones that are done nicely compared to ones that are done sloppily. Leslie.
Can we turn this in?
Okay, turning it in. You'll turn it in by uploading your file. Let's say you're using Google Slides. Don't send me the link to the Google Slides. I want to actually have a snapshot because the link, you can change it afterward. So just export it as a PDF and then upload that PDF to Moodle. So you'll be turning it in. It says in the, here, I have a syllabus here. It says in the syllabus the times when each one will be turned in. September 10, October 8, October 29, November 26, and December 7 are the 5 different times when you'll be turning in updates. And you can see there what I'll be grading each time. So it's on a phase thing just to make sure people don't wait to the end of the semester and, oh yeah, I've got to put together this thing, 25 entries, to make sure they've actually been doing it timely with the topics. Yeah.
So will this be like a weekly thing, as in like you turn it in at the end of the week, or is it like the end of the semester and you just want us to build on one side? Or?
Each slide you should do all together at the same time. So, this here, do it all at once. And you're going to be building up. So as we're going through the chapters, you can see with those different due dates, the ones that I'm going to grade in September 10 are going to be the first 5 entries you have in chapters 1 through 3. And then the next one on October 8 will be the first 5 entries from chapters 4 through 8. And
so the chapters we're doing as we go along.
Yes. And so it's sequencing. Now you have to have a total of 25 entries, and there's only 20 of them that have to be from specific chapters. So you have 5 that can be from anywhere beyond those. But it's to make sure that you have covered the range of chapters. Answer? Maybe? Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so that's the scrapbook, and that's 10% of your grade. The reading quizzes, I should have gone back. One more thing on the reading quizzes. The reading quizzes will have one question from each of the sections that we'll be covering in class. How do you know the sections we'll be covering in class? Well, you look at the back of your syllabus, and it has a schedule. Now, if you're Physics 251, your last 2 pages are schedules. One is the Physics 151 schedule, one's the Physics 251 schedule. The only difference is the textbook sections, because Physics 251 has different textbook. So I'm just going to look at the Physics 151 schedule there. And for the Physics 251 people, when I talk about the scrapbook chapters, those are the chapters from the 151 textbook. So if you look here, it says that today is chapter 1, sections 1 through 4. Maybe. The reading quiz that's due on Wednesday will include today's as well as what's listed for Wednesday. So for Wednesday, it says chapter 2, sections 1 through 3. So for that first reading quiz, you're going to have questions from all of chapter 1 plus from chapter 2, 1 through 3. Now, I don't know how many, I don't think there's many sections in chapter 1 that actually have reading quiz questions available. But that's what you're going to have covered on that reading quiz. So there'll be different numbers of questions depending on how many sections we're doing that day. And with the grading of that, I'm doing a kind of unique grading. You'll get 50% for just answering the questions if you do it on time. And then 50% for answering them right by the time of the test that's covering that material. So if you answer all of them on time and get them all wrong, you still have 50%. If you don't answer any of them on time, but you answer all of them correctly by the time of the first exam, you would get 50%. And of course, if you did them all on time and were correct on all of them, then you get 100%. So the reason I have that on time versus before the exam is if somebody didn't get it done, it's still going to benefit them for the exam, so I want them to be able to go back and do it and have the benefit for the exam. And so those grades won't be tabulated until each exam because of the proportions there. Yeah.
These reading quizzes, so they're found on the website OpenStack.
Yes.
Everything that we're doing. Or are they on the Expert TA?
I'll get to the Expert TA, but it's the OpenStacks, yeah. Okay, so now the homework. The homework is on Expert TA, which I believe is 3450 or 3250. I'll put 3250. I think that's the most accurate number. So that's going to cost money as well. The Expert TA, please note, if you're in Physics 151, you have a different Expert TA class than if you're in Physics 251. The reason is because the Physics 251 people, they're going to have some calculus-based homework. Can't mix those up. It's already set up. The classes are already set up. You have links there. You can go to Moodle and look at the syllabus and click the link. It's easier to log in and set up your account. The first homework assignment is due on Wednesday. And you might say, but wait, you said nobody's going to have to do a problem on Wednesday morning. That's because it's just an orientation assignment. The assignment's going to actually tell you to answer some things wrong so you can see what happens. And this is going to give you a grade that's like 87%, but I did it. I followed the instructions exactly. If you get over 80%, because if you follow the instructions correctly, you'll get over 80%, then I'm going to just give you 100%. So don't freak out if the scores, I lost points because I followed the instructions. So the first assignment is just how the website works for homework. And then on Friday, you'll have the first meaningful homework assignment. And that will also be 10% of your grade. Then we have the laboratory. That's the last thing you're going to have to buy. And like I said, I think that's somewhere around, I'll put $17. I don't remember what they charge. So that's the total expense for this class is around, if you add those bottom two together, that's 50. So around $60. So free textbook and these other things. The labs will run every Tuesday afternoon from 2 to 5. Ideally, my theory is that students have the lab write-up completely done when they leave. Now, some people like to type it. You can do that. I don't. I write because I don't want to take the time. But your lab write-up will talk about it, and you'll see in the stuff I'll post soon how it will work. But you should have the lab write-up done when you leave the room. And so then I give you until Thursday night, 11:55 p.m., because you go to midnight, it shows it is Friday morning. So I give you to 11:55 p.m. on Thursday night to upload as one PDF document your lab report. So the theory is not that you're working on it after Tuesday. It's just that's, you gotta have time to put it together as one PDF document and upload it. And so those lab reports are a big portion of your grade, 25% of your grade, because it's 25% of your credit for the class. The way credits work, you probably already know, but I'll just review it. If it's a 4-unit class like this class, typically that would mean 4 hours a week, your butt's in the chair. But if it's a lab, you're expected to study at least 2 hours outside class for every hour inside a class. And so for a lab, they take a 3-hour lab period as being equivalent in time to 1 hour of sitting in a classroom. And so for this class, it's 3 1-hours of lecture, and then 1 3-hour lab section gives you 4. So 1/4 of your credit is from the lab, hence 1/4 of your grade. Final section here, the exams. Well, not the final, the penultimate section. Exams are a big section, big segment of your grade. There is a typo on the exams page. I noticed it after I printed them all. It's a typo because it's what I had last year. I changed my policy and forgot to change it. We have 4 midterm exams. Obviously, in my vernacular, midterm does not mean halfway through the term. It means in the midst of the term. So you have 4 midterm exams and the final exam. The final exam is cumulative over the entire semester. But there's only like 2 weeks between the final midterm and the final exam. And so what I do is you can drop your lowest exam grade. And I weight all of the exams equally, including the final exam. So that means the 4 that you keep will each be worth 10% of your overall grade. And if your first 4 exams are going to do it for you, then you can drop the 5th exam, the final exam. So you don't necessarily have to take the final exam if you've done well in the other 4 exams. If you had one that was like disaster, I remember taking what we called math methods. First exam in that class, I got like 45%. I was aghast. I never scored anything like that. I talked to the teacher. He was a great man. And he told me that if I did well for the rest of the semester, he would not count that exam. I just have to tell you this because it's a great story of grace. It always makes me tear up. So we go through this semester. This teacher who insisted on calling me Dick, I corrected him every class period. And he would say, well, I can't hear out of that ear. You're sitting on that side of the classroom, Dick. He got cancer. And during the last month of the semester, he was in the hospital with cancer. And like at the beginning of finals week, I got a phone call and he says, Dick, you've done well in class ever since that first exam. So I'm not going to count it. And you got an A already, so you don't have to take the final. And that was huge grace for me because I was really freaking out about that final. And for good reason. Everyone who had to take the final lowered the grade. Not the case with mine. Usually at least a third, if not half the class improves their grade taking the final. Because, you should, right? So that's my exam policy. And that's a great example of grace. And I like to at least think that occasionally I might show that kind of grace. Unfortunately, there's, a lot of works in me too. Now the attendance policy. The attendance policy I really have to explain because it's my only effort counts grade. My attendance policy is following on a document I read many years ago. Said Union College allows you to miss one lecture per semester for every day of lecture you have in a week. So we have 3 days of lecture for Physics 151, 4 days of lecture for Physics 251. And so I say, okay, I'm going to consider perfect attendance being present for all but 3 lectures for the semester. And I'm going to give a 2% boost to your final grade if you have perfect attendance. So that perfect attendance means that you had no more than 3 absences. And then I have my funky way of calculating absences. Clearly, if you're not here for class, that's an absence. I consider those 3 that still gives you perfect attendance excused absences. You don't need to come to me and say, Dr. Webb, I was really sick. So it's an excused absence. The first 3 absences, I mean, you could have been playing golf. I'm going to say he's got a valid excuse, it's excused. And then after that, it's just not excused. Right? So don't say, well, I played golf 3 days and now I'm sick, so this is also excused. That's the way I run that. If you are here on time, you get 3 points for attendance. Remember I said if you're within the first 5 minutes, you lose a point, so you get 2. If you are more than 5 minutes late, or if you're sitting there texting on the phone during class, and I have had people do this, you come in and after about 5 minutes, you leave, go to the cafeteria, get some lunch, come back for the last 5 minutes, then you only get 1 point for attendance. And if you are not here at all, whether it's excused or not, you get 0 for attendance. And since 3 points was the maximum, losing 9 points is the equivalent for 3 absences. So if you lose 9 points or less, you get a 2% bonus to your grade. If you lose more than 9 points, you get no bonus. And then we have Union College's policy that if you miss 20% of a class, the teacher could fail you. Well, I don't do that. But what I do is I have a policy that if you miss more than 2 weeks of school, then I start lowering your grade for the absence or for the points. So it's kind of convoluted attendance policy. That's why I had to explain it. If y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. Like, are you going to end this lecture anytime soon? Here's the typo on the exams. It should say 3 advanced problems. It says 3, synthesis problems with answers. Last semester, I gave them the answers and I graded them on the work. But what I found was the scores were similar to if they just were getting the answers. I'd read, before I became a teacher, over 20 years ago, I attended a seminar where this person said, we did research, extensive research, and the scores that people have on multiple choice questions are the same as the scores they have when you grade them on their work. And I always said, well, that doesn't really make sense because, a lot of people make a little mistake. The answer's wrong, but they understood the work. But what I found last year was that was correct. The students had basically the same scores on all 3 sections. And so this time I'm not giving you the answers on synthesis. So please, scratch it out. I don't want anyone to come back and say, but it says here you're going to give me the answers, and the answers weren't there. And so everything is just going to be graded whether you have the answers right or wrong. This will help with my turnaround time for grading because I'll have everything graded very quickly this year. Question, Leslie?
Wait, what do you mean? Like, you're gonna, I'm not understanding that, the synthesis one.
The synthesis synthesis means you're taking ideas and fitting them together. And so you're still going to have problems that are more advanced problems where you have to fit different ideas together, but I'm only grading on, did you get the final answer right? So everything is going to be...
So it's about the destination and not the journey.
Yes, even though physics is about the journey, because the research shows that the scores mirror each other, and it's much quicker and easier to grade the other way. I'm grading just on the answers.
So then we lose a lot of points if we just get the answer wrong?
Yes.
So do you want us showing a lot of work?
I'm not going to grade on the work this time, so you don't have to. I will see how that goes as far as learning, because it's the work is the important thing in physics.
But if it's you're only 1 point, one number off of the synthesis problem, and you didn't get it right, then it's
still wrong. Yeah, that's the reason that I have all of my career not done it this way.
So there's not a range?
There's no partial credit.
the answers are all going to be multiple choice. So like if you're off by 1 decimal place, you'll be like, well, this one has got to be the one that
So
fits
you're
my
still
answer.
providing answers?
Yes, yeah, it still has it, but it doesn't tell you which one is correct.
Okay.
Last year I told them which one was correct.
Okay, this is.
Okay. I thought you really wanted to like precise 2.936.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that.
Thank you for getting me to clarify that.
Oh, so it's not like last year where you gave the correct one and you graded off the word. This time it's multiple choice and then.
That's right. That's right.
That's really better. Now that I think about it.
Okay. Now, the last of my introduction slides before we get to any physics. Yeah, right. 3 minutes. I am taking the computer science 226 class again because I don't know how to do Python programming. And Dr. Dickerson had something like this, and I thought, that's great. It's important that you know what I'm expecting out of you for this class. So I expect you to read the material that we're going to be lecturing on, or that we be covering in class before you come to class. I expect you to be on time and to pay attention, and to ask questions if they're relevant questions that you have. You know, just like now where people are wondering about the test grading method. You know, apparently I was not clear. I thought in my head I was. Clearly I wasn't because of the responses. So ask those questions, get it clear. You should be able to come out of class having a better understanding, not being like, I'm not sure what he was talking about. And remember that learning is more important than the grade. Right? I know if you're like pre-med, pre-dent, pre-vet, they're going to be looking at those grades and judging you very strongly on the grades. But in life, the grades is not what's important. It's what you've learned. And, you know, you're in college to learn to think. And so, you know, don't get overly distressed with a grade that's not up to the level you wanted. Get distressed if you're not learning. And if you're not learning, come and see me. I do have office hours there on this, and I love to help people understand physics or to talk about the Raiders. I am going to go to my first slide, and we'll stop there. What do physicists study? The things we're studying first semester and right here. But I really want to get input from another professional. So, yes. And of course, as luck has, I'm sure this is going to fail halfway through like it always seems to do. It like, I was playing it beforehand, and it went from full screen to partial screen in the middle of playing it.
But if you take advantage of modern marketing techniques and you optimize your manufacturing process, you might be able to make this a viable business.
It's important.
You know about that stuff?
I'm a physicist. I have a working knowledge of the entire universe and everything it contains.
Who's Radiohead?
Truth is, I don't know either because I'm a physicist.
I have a working knowledge of the important things in the universe.
Okay, and